Hello, this is Mark Holmes, editorial director of Via Satellite, and we're doing another of our famous or infamous Thursday morning conversations. And I'm delighted to be talking to someone I haven't seen in a while, Chris Johnson, the president of Boeing Satellite Systems International. Chris, we always start by talking about, how's life under lockdown been for you? What's it been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think, good morning. Hey, thank you again for the opportunity. It's great to see you. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've seen each other in person, but I think this is the new normal. So, under lockdown, those first couple weeks, probably even month was it certainly was a bit of a challenge to get to the new norm. But, I think, we've really found a groove from the business perspective of being interacted and, kind of being constantly connected. I think the speed of decision making has actually gone up because we're all, kind of sitting here in our home offices, probably 12 to 14 hours a day. So it's been going all right. I'll tell you just, from a personal perspective that this morning we had the window washers in. And so I started like, I'm supposed to record an interview. And my wife's like, I promise they'll be gone in time. And so as there's somebody off to my right cleaning the window, thankfully it's all there. But, those additional household challenges you have to deal with too. Well, since I'm, four other people in the house, so sharing the same space. But yeah, I mean, overall, I can't complain.
I mean, one of the things we've been talking about in terms of family time has been what you've been watching, movies, dramas. What have you been watching?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly a little more time to watch TV shows and movies with the family. Also, one thing we've been doing as a tradition on Sunday afternoons is we're trying to watch all the Marvel movies in order. So I've got three boys, 14, 12, and 10. So it's been a good chance to go back and make that an event kind of on a recurring basis. The wife and I have been doing a fair amount of, binge watching. So whether it's rewatching The Office, something we watched in real time before, watching a few documentaries that have been coming out on Netflix. So the Michelle Obama documentary was really interesting. And then, catching up on some shows that maybe we'd missed. So, like Better Call Saul, and then going back into some Breaking Bad. So yeah, it's from that perspective, it's been great to have that time, not only with the wife because since I'm on the road so much anyway, to catch up, but also with the kids.
And which are your favorite Marvel movies? Which ones are you particularly keen on?
I mean, I really like the original Iron Man, but that might be more a bit of my age. The kids really like some of the like Thor Ragnarok, a little more not so superhero and a little more funny. And then, the Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know.
It's funny, Breaking Bad has been mentioned a couple of times. I was talking to Pradman Call of Hughes yesterday, and I think he's binge watched the entire collection of Breaking Bad during lockdown. So popular one amongst the satellite community, that one.
Well, it's one that just sucks you in, and then the next thing you know, you've watched 3 in a row, and it's way past bedtime.
And what about, are you a big music fan? Particular bands that you've been listening to? What kind of music have you been listening to during lockdown?
Yeah, so there has been a good chance for music. I mean, I think, I like Head in the Heart and Lumineers and Mumford and Son. So there's been not a lot of new music that's come out, but certainly a lot of those bands have been putting out kind of remixes and some unreleased activities. So, certainly when it's kind of date night locally here with the wife, if we're sitting out on the deck or whatnot, we'll put on those kinds of tunes. But, with the tweens and the teenager, there's a little more, what's the popular music of the day. And so, trying to stay up on, not really stay up, but be aware of things, like Drake and, the new Taylor Swift album and that kind of thing is on in the background often.
Have you heard that new Taylor Swift album?
Yeah, I did. One of the best investments I think I made for Christmas was buying my 14-year-old Spotify, which I also partake in quite frequently. So, just the ability to have that at your fingertips at any point, kind of like any album you could ever think of and new releases. I mean, I know we're talking personal kind of things here to start, but I mean, the kind of connectivity that enables. And so what I think that could mean from a, broader satellite business too. I mean, just how can I have that connectivity to anything at your fingertips at any point? And that's kind of the future. So just a small microcosm of that, of me walking around the house and being able to dial in, a rap song from the 80s, or, a hair band from the, so.
So give me a hairband song that you really like from the 80s.
So, I was a child of probably the late 80s. So I was more the Def Leppard and Bon Jovi time. So, Living on a Prayer is a good sing along kind of song.
I think that was the third cassette I ever bought. So I definitely had the Slippery When Wet, and I
Yes.
saw
Yep. And then New Jersey right after that. So yeah.
Do you know, before we get on to some satellite stuff, I actually saw Bon Jovi actually in the US, in Maryland, at a really small venue in about 93, I think it was. And it was just after that time that grunge was very big. So Nirvana, Pearl Jam, all those bands, and Bon Jovi was seriously uncool at that time. And they were not playing arenas or stadiums anymore. And, I remember seeing them in this really, comparative, a small venue for them anyway. I mean, I guess it held a couple of thousand. So that
I mean, that's the best time to see a band. I've been fortunate, a couple times to where you're in these environments to where, it's 1,000 people and you're used to seeing them in, huge amphitheaters and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, at that Bon Jovi time was when they were doing the acoustic kind of, Dead or Alive with Sam Bora standing on stage. So yeah, that would have been a cool thing.
I have to ask you about rap songs in the 80s as well. I mean, do you have a particular favorite rap song that gets you going in the morning before you start some satellite stuff?
Yeah, the rap songs from the 80s are, of course it was like Fresh Prince, Will Smith, early on, kind of more, parents don't understand. So for some reason that resonated with me at that time in my life. And then, things like Public Enemy was something that I found my way into at one point. And then, how that transitioned into, some of the other things that were more high school, but maybe not, 90s rap and East Coast, West Coast. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things I grew up with, and still it's kind of interesting to see, because my sons are big into it at this point, and I just don't understand it. I think it may have passed me up at this point.
And before we talked about some satellite stuff, are you a sports fan at all? Particular favorite?
Oh yeah. So the past few months have been really really tough. Although the last month, I guess, has been better with baseball and basketball back. But
do you have a particular team that you follow? Or?
Oh yeah. So being in LA now for over 20 years, big Lakers fan. So that's they've been playing really well, and back in the bubble in Orlando look like they're going to do okay, although the last couple games have been tough. But both Dodgers and Angels from a baseball perspective, and then the Rams will, they're opening up the new stadium with no fans this year, but it'll be really interesting to see how they do as well.
Sean McVay, I mean, how highly do you rate him as a coach?
I really like Coach McVay. I know it was tough last year because they were expecting this offensive explosion, and that didn't turn out to be. But yeah, I mean, I still have high hopes. It's just great to have a football team in LA for the first, 18 years that I lived out here. No Raiders, no Rams, no Chargers, no anything. So especially for my boys, growing up with the home team and having somebody to root for. So it's been a lot of fun. We've been to a couple games.
I'm a Broncos fan so I've witnessed the Super Bowls where we got absolutely trounced, and we had 2 or 3 that we managed to win. So
yeah, no, that's fun. I have a brother-in-law who grew up in Colorado, so we've watched more than a couple Broncos Super Bowls together, which it's been fun.
Excellent. Well, we'll definitely sort of watch it when there's a Broncos Rams game at some point. I don't know if it's in the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, that would be great.
Shade your way, I think. And, although I think the Rams are maybe a little bit better than the Broncos at the moment, so maybe I'll have to keep quiet. But let's talk a little bit about some of the satellite stuff. I mean, we've done a number of these conversations, and we've been hearing how, particularly, companies have adapted. I mean, you're building satellites. You have a tremendously important role within the overall industry. And I don't think anyone really predicted in like late February, early March, how long this was going to go on, how prolonged it was going to be. For a company like Boeing, which is one of the biggest names in this space, tell us about the challenges it's given to you personally to manage your team, to really carry on with the business. Tell us a little bit about, from your perspective, how that's been.
Yeah, so I mean, certainly, I think it's not unique that it's a challenge, and not something that probably anyone was, could kind of think of or wrap their head around at the beginning. I mean, I think I'm very fortunate, working at a big company like Boeing, global company that, had to start dealing with some of those precautions earlier on, just the fact that we were global and the fact that it, took a little longer to get to the United States. So, Boeing set up, very clear safety guidelines and procedures, and we were able to implement those, to include, masks and, separation from a social distancing perspective. And really, a lot of the times that we're doing manufacturing on satellites, we don't have the technicians and the workforce. There isn't a lot of, work really close to each other, and there's already a number of protective equipment that folks need to wear to work in, high bays and that kind of, clean room. So, I think being able to leverage some of the capabilities and techniques that we already had to make sure that our satellites were safe also helped then, really clearly transition to some of our people aspect of it too. So right now we're still manufacturing satellites that, on the commercial satellite side. So thankfully we were able to continue safely and, with a lot of extra cleaning and masks and whatnot, continuing to build in our high bay. But I'd say, the vast majority of folks that don't have to be there or don't need to be there, that we've all been virtual. So, I think there's the things that you've talked about to a number of other folks that, how do you get people in a different routine? How do you bring that communication back up? And how do you deal with, the WebEx delays and the various, Zoom calls that, at some point you stop talking on top of each other. And I'm not sure when that happened, but I mean, we certainly, those first couple of weeks were a little painful as we figured out the new norm, or if you got somebody's answering machine. But I really think, the team has adapted tremendously well to this new normal, and just, being more patient with each other, being kind of more understanding of if there's childcare issues, or if there's other things that need to be dealt with. Like we're all in this together, and so we're continuing to make a ton of progress.
Has it sort of accelerated any sort of like changes in the process of building satellites? And I mean, I know you mentioned that there's almost some natural distancing taking place anyway, but are there things that are happening now when you're building these satellites that just you would never have imagined happening?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we've, with the Empower and with some of the, the new technologies from what we're doing on the payload side, it just kind of naturally leads itself to less touch labor. And so, some of the things that we were doing on some of our more traditional satellites would have created some more close quarters and more, mini plugins here, there, and wires and whatnot. But with Empower in particular, that, there's a lot more. It arrives as a configured unit, and so it's a bit more of just then you bolt it down and do some testing. So I would say that we were already on a path to drive some of the manufacturing efficiencies, and some of that just naturally leads itself to kind of less touch labor, which is great. But some of the other satellites that we're building, we haven't seen a significant change. I mean, it's a huge safety culture at Boeing to make sure people are protected, and so adding one more kind of small thing to that checklist, it hasn't really changed much.
And how are those Zoom things with like Steve and SES?
Yeah, I liked how Steve in his interview, he was standing up and he looked super comfortable, and yeah, I mean, he's a pro at those. So yeah, there's been a lot of interaction with Steve and with Rui Pinto and Stuart Sanders, and yeah, a lot, tons of good progress with SES during this time.
What was it like doing that over Zoom? And I mean, I know SES has teams obviously in North America, but I mean, we talk about the new normal and not being able to go to events. I mean, how is it doing business over Zoom now?
So I actually think because, and this is just fortunate because of the relationship that we have with that SES team, that we were able to get a lot of things done over the past few months, as people have read about, because of those relationships and because of kind of understanding that we're all in this together. So yeah, I mean, it saved me 2 or 3 trips to Luxembourg, although I love Luxembourg, and we still need to have a celebration for 4 more M-Powers and a couple C-band satellites. We've had a couple virtual, or the text emoji of a champagne glass, but to me, we figured out a way, because we need to continue to move our business forward and move our customers' business forward. So, I think the time zone probably was the biggest challenge. So, 6 a.m. on the Pacific time, that might be the right time to get together with my SES crew, or sometimes it's after dinner for them, and it's more of the kind of the afternoon. So, it's like that first month with the rest of my team. It was a matter of figuring out what works the best, and then we were able to accommodate and get a lot done.
That's excellent, and congratulations on that deal as well. I mean, outside of sort of Empower SES, which I know was announced recently, I mean, what are you sort of hearing from customers about other business going forward? I mean, we've had a lot of big stories in the satellite sector this year. Companies going into sort of Chapter 11. Some will no doubt re-emerge stronger. What are you sort of hearing in terms of like the potential deal flow for you for, say, the rest of this year going into 21?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we've seen a slowdown in what the next generation high throughput satellites would be, and so the 702X for GEO. We're excited that there's 11 702X MEOs for mPOWER, but we certainly felt like we would have been in a spot to make some more positive announcements on 702X and GEO, and that's certainly slowed down. I think there's a similar kind of how do we go interact and really engage on new business models and new capabilities over this new Zoom world. Although I think we've started to figure that out. Something like a 702X with the software defined payload, it's just very different in the way that you'd use it and the flexibility that you would have. And so that just takes some shoulder to shoulder understanding of what the kind of pain points for your customer are. And so we've really, started to have a lot of those discussions and engagements in these kinds of forums, like you and I are talking now, and we're seeing a lot of positive movement there. So I think certainly you saw some delay, and I think that the whole industry saw some delay. Although, hey, C-band, there's a lot of us that we're happy that continues to move forward. But I think from a high throughput and a software defined perspective, I think you'll see a significant uptick as we move into the the second half of the year. So excited to see where that takes us, and hopefully you and I can talk about some of those awards here coming up soon.
Is there a lot of, I mean, it's sort of interesting. I mean, are there a lot of RFPs, a lot of contracts out there now in terms of competition? I mean, you said an uptick. I mean, but are there sort of less competitions right now for new satellites, or is it where you expected it to be?
I mean, it ebbs and flows. I mean, I think we often on stage have that discussion of, how do we count GEO orders and what RFPs are real. I mean, I would say that, the thing that we're seeing, especially with some of this new technology, is that yes, the traditional path of RFI and RFP is certainly one key aspect of how to capture new awards. I'd say it's probably equally as important to understand what the broader business deal is, and you've seen a number of folks kind of, maybe it's a surprise to some. It's like, hey, we just bought 3 of these, or we figured out an agreement to go ahead and move forward. And so part of the discussions with these operators are, how can you take full advantage of some of these capabilities? There's certainly economies of scale. So our 702X, that its a vast majority of the components and parts are synergistic with our MEO component. So there's certainly opportunities that if you've got a hot production line, how could you fit in and slot in a few more, and that could create a unique timing perspective that may not have been in their plans, but it's such a good deal, it's tough to turn down.
And how would you sort of characterize the satellite manufacturing space? I mean, I think this is one of the first we've done where we've spoken to sort of one of the big manufacturers. I mean, has it made things a lot tougher for you? I mean, you said about, you've got the mPOWER deal and a lot of processes being Boeing, a big company in place. But sort of overall, as you go forward, are there now going to be another number of obstacles to overcome?
I mean, we have really tough competition in this market, and that I don't think that's changed, and I don't see that changing anytime into the future. So folks like Thales and Airbus and Northrop and Maxar, those are folks, and I don't want to miss anybody else. So I don't want to be on that bulletin board material. Back to our sporting conversation earlier, but it's really that competition that drives us to be better. I mean, that's what has us invest in the kind of technology that we're putting out on 702X and some of the the platform capabilities we're doing for Viasat. So I think the places that the non-traditional or some of the startups, whether it's Amazon or SpaceX with their constellations, I mean that's certainly a new entry into the environment and creating some opportunity to look at things in a different way. And I think that you're getting some folks in on those constellations and trying to think of space in a different way that'll create opportunities for the more traditional manufacturers as well.
I mean, obviously we've seen what's happened with LeoSat, what's happened with OneWeb, some very, I guess, sort of high-profile casualties already. Is this a worrying sign for the industry, or not, as the case may be? I mean, is the industry, despite of these, overall in rude health?
I mean, I think it's a bit more of I still see a lot of things going forward. I don't think any of us at any point have said, yeah, there's going to be 15 Leo constellations, or even 5, right, for that matter. So the fact that we're seeing a few hiccups in a couple of places doesn't surprise me. I think that as long as and I'm confident that there'll be a few that continue to move forward. I think it's an opportunity for the supply base, and so there might be a couple places here or there where somebody's built up for a particular constellation from a supply base perspective that then needs to find a new opportunity. But for me, it's goodness. Like it's getting the attention. It's got people excited. You see some of the valuations of some of these folks they're coming into the market. I think that creates great opportunity for those of us that have been here for a while to really accelerate and double down on some of the opportunities that are out there.
So the overall message is, despite of this and despite of what's SpaceX, Amazon, there's still plenty of opportunities for a company like Boeing going forward.
Yeah, certainly. And and one of the things that enables us, and it's kind of we talk about it all the time with my counterpart on the government side, is we've got this virtuous cycle where the commercial market will push the envelope from a technology perspective, and we'll make some investments, and then that often finds its way into technology that supports our government programs, and in a very similar way that often there'll be government kind of investments and new capabilities that can find their way into the commercial side. So that's something that I know a couple of my competimates also have that advantage, but we see that as a key enabler for our business and a way to continue to push the technology in all sides.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to end on a sports question. I'll try and end on a bit of a fun question. So, and I can hold this against you if you get this completely wrong. So give me a tip next year. Who's going to be competing in the Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. Well, I mean, I have to pick the Rams because they're my favorite local team, and I'll say that the Kansas City Chiefs will be back there again because Patrick Mahomes and that whole team, they're pretty solid. So I'm hoping the football sticks around and the rest of the sport can find a way to do it safely. But yeah, unfortunately, not your Broncos. I'm not picking that. So.
Oh dear, Chris. But there you are. To be honest, I think I hope Drew Lock has a good year and that we make progress. We're a little bit behind Kansas City at the moment, so but hopefully we can. We haven't won against Kansas City in 5 years, so I hope we can at least get a victory against them and then sort of go from there. Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, we've talked rap, we've talked hairband, we've talked Leo, Mio, Geo. We've talked all kinds of stuff. So it's been a real pleasure to have a conversation with you today. Boeing, as you know, via satellite, we're big fans of Boeing. We've worked with you for many years. We wish you and your teams all the best over this period to stay safe and healthy. And, you do a great job for this industry, bringing a lot of great technology to companies in this sector. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it and wish you all the best.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. Really appreciate it. Yeah. Stay safe.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay.